Good evening. It is 6:30 p.m. and I am calling the Monday, April 26, 2021 Planning Commission meeting to order. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting will be held virtually by using Zoom and in person while following social distancing guidelines. As chair, I will be leading the Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or join via online Zoom. If attendees experience audio problems, we suggest you leave the meeting and then rejoin. This has usually fixed the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at www.burnsvillemn.gov in the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BCTV and on the city's website. If you are unable to participate in this evening's meeting and would like to submit public testimony, I encourage you to email your comments to city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. You may participate in the meeting tonight online by going to https://zoom.us/join and typing in meeting ID 917-8182-3622. Once you are logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to tell the moderator which item you wish to speak to. You may also call into the meeting at 651-372-8299 with the same meeting ID 917-8182-3622. For each public hearing, I will open a time when callers may speak to that item and will give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until then. Please note there may be a slight delay due to the differences in technology. If speaking by phone, please mute your computer since there may be feedback. All right, now on to the agenda. Our first item on this evening's agenda is adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, do you have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No.
Okay, staff?
No changes from staff.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll move.
Okay, Commissioner Henderson moves, Commissioner Awad
I'll
seconds. Thank you, sir. And I suppose we'll still do a roll call vote since we have one Commissioner Anderson remote. So if we could do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Awad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Aye. And adoption of the agenda carries. We will move on to the second item, which is approval of the April 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, do you have any changes to the minutes?
No.
Seeing none. Staff, any changes to the minutes?
No changes from staff.
Thank you. And if we could have a roll call vote, please, or I'm sorry, a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you. Moved by, we'll go to Commissioner Anderson for a second.
I second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Awad, second by Commissioner Anderson, and a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Awad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Aye. And the motion carries. Just enough votes to carry that one. All right, on to item number 3, which is a public hearing, and it's an application of 35 South Industrial Owner LLC for an interim use permit for outdoor storage of wooden pallets and storage container pods at the Burnsville Industrial Phase IV development located at 1750 126th Street West. And this evening, our city planner, Sarah Madden, will be giving a presentation. Ms. Madden.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So the purpose of the item before you is to hold a public hearing and consider approval of a request for outdoor storage that may be familiar to some of you who are on the commission at this time, that was originally approved in June of 2019. So in the first review of this application, there were a number of approvals associated with this property. There was a rezoning to a planned unit development, a plat of the property to subdivide a portion off for this new building, and then of course the planned unit development approval for the outdoor storage, or for the building, and an interim use permit for outdoor storage. So due to a few factors, the interim use permit did expire after 1 year. So the item before you this evening is within the same parameters the interim use permit for outdoor storage to benefit two of the prospective tenants in the building, which is currently going through some of the site work, planning for construction. So shown here is a site plan of the proposed building, and it highlights the outdoor storage area, which was seen in the June 2019 plans as part of that application. So the request from the applicant has not changed, but for that there is a second tenant that is interested in the outdoor storage space. So the boundaries of the storage area are the same as was previously requested. The term length with an expiration date of 2034 is the same. What's different is that instead of storage container pods only, there's an additional tenant that is requesting to use the space for some wooden pallets associated with their business type. So as required in the ordinance, the outdoor storage area will be 100% screened. The applicant is showing a 6-foot vinyl fence, privacy fence on the west side, and then the approved landscape plan from the plan unit development does screen it on the east side as well. So, quick application here, but so staff is recommending approval of the application. There's a minor change in condition number 1, as the materials that will be stored was stated correctly in the recommendation and correctly in condition number 3, but mistyped in condition number 1. The applicant should be available to speak to the proposal if necessary, and I'm available as well, and it will be a public hearing this evening.
All right, thank you, Ms. Madden. Any questions from the commissioners? All right, seeing none. I will open the public hearing at 6:36. And I believe, is it Connor from United Properties on this item that we have?
That is the applicant, yes.
Okay,
So-
I had a message that
You had a
Connor's on
All
the
right.
call, so I'm sorry, I don't know your full name, Connor, but if you'd like to address the commission, I believe he's on the phone, or is he on Zoom?
I think he's on Zoom.
Hello, this is Connor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you would, please state your full name and address for the record, and then if you'd like to provide any additional information for the commission, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Connor McCarthy. I work with United Properties, and the address is 651 Nicollet Mall, Minneapolis. I'm really here to answer questions, to say thanks to you all, and thanks to Sarah for the help throughout the project. We're essentially just re-requesting our approval that lapsed. City Council had approved back in 2019, and we intended to break ground, but COVID-19 put the pause on our project. So we're back and requesting essentially the same thing as before. So we're excited to develop our 4th project here in Burnsville, and look forward to continued relationship. So here to answer questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. McCarthy. We do not have anybody else in chambers, I believe, that wants to speak to this item. Is there anybody on Zoom or additional people on the telephone who wish to? All right, I will close the public hearing at 6:38 p.m. And commissioners, any additional discussion, questions, or motions? Commissioner Wad.
It seems pretty straightforward, and I appreciate the applicant being able to fire up the process again. I'm going to make a motion if that's okay.
Very good.
Okay, put my glasses on. So I will move that we recommend to the City Council approval of the application of 35 South Industrial Owner LLC for an interim use permit for outdoor storage of wooden pallets and storage container pods at the Burnsville Industrial Phase IV development located at 1750 126th Street West, subject to the conditions that were listed, the 3 conditions.
All right, thank you. Moved by Commissioner Wad,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Henderson. And any additional discussion? All right, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Wad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman,
Aye. And the motion carries. Mr. McCarthy, thank you for joining us. This will be heard at the next city council meeting on May 4th of 2021.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is Item number 4, it's a public hearing as well, and it's an application of Cedarwood Burnsville LLC for a planned unit development amendment to allow a religious institution use at 550 Burnsville Parkway West. And again, we will have Ms. Madden presenting. Ms. Madden.
Thank you. So this next item is a plan unit development amendment at the Anchor Bank building, or what was originally the Anchor Bank building, now the old National Bank building in heart of the city. So it's kind of a multi-tenant mixed-use office building with a variety of medical, bank, and office uses. So the request is for the site to allow a religious institution use, which is a conditional use in the transit-oriented development district. The site itself does have a PUD from 2006 with specific conditions about the use of space and parking that affect the ability for the new tenant to locate in this spot. So it is not just the conditional use that is under review as part of the application. It is what is often under review for a religious institution use with any type of major assembly of people in a space. We look at parking. And then, of course, at the stage of the building permit approval, the fire marshal and the building official make some designations with that space. So the lower level of this building was originally required to be unfinished and used for storage so that the building could meet the heart of the city zoning and regular zoning ordinance parking requirements of that time. As you guys may recall, we did look at the parking ordinance last year, and those were changed. Also last year, we approved the transit-oriented development zoning district, where parking was further changed for this site in particular, as well as the rest of the heart of the city. So there was a condition on the original PUD that this space remain as storage, and staff is requesting or suggesting that that be removed as part of this proposal. A portion of the lower level space, approximately 3,000 square feet of sanctuary space, within that about 4,100 to 4,500 of overall space that would go to this tenant in this use. So there would still be that leftover space for their classroom and continued storage and needs of both the building and this new tenant. So the building department has noted that as required by law, an architect will be needed for the build out of the space, for that full code analysis to be provided at the time of building permit application. The site itself is just over an acre with about 20,000 square feet of office building. So it does have a full lower level basement that, as mentioned, is only partially finished or at least partially used by tenants within the building at this time. That key component of the conditional use portion of the application for the religious assembly is that review of parking. So because this site is within the transit-oriented development district and it's across the street to the east from a future Orange Line transit station, there are some overall parking reductions made available to the proposal, which are kind of outlined in some charts within your background report. So as mentioned there, the current zoning ordinance would permit a minimum of 30 spaces for just the existing uses in the building. At the time that it was approved, that was 55 spaces. So there are some significant changes between the ordinance in 2006 and the ordinance in 2021. So a minimum of 66 spaces would be required for the existing and proposed combined, which is a deviation requested in the plan unit development. To move on to those deviations, so that first deviation requested within the PUD is really related as a removal of that condition number 1 of the 2006 plan unit development, which restricted the finishing of the lower level storage space for usable space. And it was indicated in that background report that the sole reason for restricting that was so that the building could comply with the parking ordinance at the time. The other 2 deviations are the ones that are related to the parking on the site. So to allow 55 parking spaces, which is what is existing on the site, as opposed to the 66, which would be required by city code. Staff is supportive of this application, in part because of deviation number 3, which is that there would be an off-site parking lease used with a neighboring property for them to use as part of their religious institution as needed for overflow parking, but also because the site is adjacent to both a normal transit route or standard service transit route, as well as the future Orange Line Bus Rapid Transit station, as well as being a off-peak hour type of use for a religious institution as compared to a bank and some of the medical clinics that are within this space. So by utilizing a land lease on the site that is across from Burnsville Parkway from the subject property, that would be a third deviation to the plan unit development because we do allow a deed restriction, which would be in perpetuity on the site for parking by right, but it would be a conditional use permit or an amended plan unit development to allow it as a temporary land lease that could be canceled by either party. So that's why it is a deviation on this request. Overall, staff is supportive of the deviations. However, due to the unique site conditions for that lower level and the highly specific parking approvals, a condition has been added that a change of use in the basement space to a different type of use is going to require further plan unit development amendment. That does not necessarily mean changes inside of the current tenant of the religious institution use, but more specifically related to if this tenant moves out and a different type of tenant who may have different parking needs moves into the space, there would be a further review. So some benefits to this plan unit development and the project as a whole are that the use is consistent with the goals of the transit-oriented development district, which is to provide neighborhood uses that are within walking distance of highly accessible transit. This proposal is also going to help enhance that kind of eastern or western edge of heart of the city and provide additional users for the new Orange Line Bus Rapid Transit Station. So overall, staff is recommending approval of the application subject to 3 conditions. So the first condition, as mentioned, is a removal of a previous condition. The second condition is what was mentioned prior, which is that change of use or occupancy would require further review of the plan unit development. And then third, that a sign permit be obtained from us prior to installation of signs on the exterior of the building and the property. And that's because this particular building in the transit-oriented development district has some specific standards that were approved for the original anchor bank. So with that, I can stand for questions, and it will be a public hearing this evening, and there are members from the applicant team at City Hall in the audience.
Wonderful, thank you, Ms. Madden. All right, commissioners, any questions off the bat? All right, so I will open the public hearing at 6:47 p.m. and I will allow for anybody in the audience who does wish to speak to this to join us, whether there's anybody on Zoom, telephone, or in chambers. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 6:48 p.m. and open it back up to commissioners for questions and discussion. Commissioners, what are your thoughts? Commissioner Anderson.
I'd just like to start by saying, once again, you guys did a wonderful job with that presentation. It all seems to make sense to me, understanding the parking restrictions and how having that overflow parking contract helps them to alleviate any issues that they may have. So yeah, just once again, I'd like to say thank you for that presentation. It all made perfect sense to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. The only, I guess, thoughts or questions I have are just regarding the occupancy limits, as well as, I guess, getting a feel for what that area actually looks like as far as safety. If there were some kind of fire or disaster, things like that. It looked like there was a lot of information in there about the sprinkling systems that were in place and the dedicated HVAC. And I guess I'm just trying to get a feel. It looks like police and fire have looked at this, signed off on it, and my question, I suppose, is if this were at full capacity with 200 occupants as proposed, and there were some type of disaster, are there issues with exits, escapes? I assume there's no windows in this basement. Do you kind of have an idea of the lay of the land down there?
That's a great question. Thank you. So our fire marshal did review the application and chose to reserve most of his comments for when we get that full analysis of the lower level. They're familiar with the space in general, and they have the tools within the fire code in order to request that some changes be made if necessary for the life, health, safety reasons in the lower level. And part of that is why the building official has indicated as a reminder that an architect is involved with this type of a build out, is because the change in use from storage to an occupied space with a large number of people requires an architect. So he would be working, him and our plans examiner in the building department would be working with the applicant team at that time to go over all of the egress issues. For specific questions about the space, the building owner is present, and if he wants to answer those questions, he can. But the building official and the fire marshal have looked at what is proposed and have met with me and the applicant prior to submitting application.
Okay, real good, thank you.
I'd be happy to address it.
Sure, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, you're welcome to take off your mask or leave it on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So my name is Jeff Wilwarding. I'm the president of Cedarwood Burnsville LLC and the owner of the property. I was also an architect for 31 years at a architecture and engineering firm in downtown Minneapolis. I'm not the architect on this project. My license lapsed many years ago, but I have a lot of experience in doing, these types of buildings. This building was ideally set up for a development in the lower level. ADA accessibility, plumbing was set up for toilets in the off chance that it would be used for more than just storage. As a matter of fact, the building was originally laid out with a future office proposal, which included partitions and, demising walls and toilets and exiting and so on. So the plan, the building is actually set up already for this. The other nice thing is that the floor ceiling assembly between the lower level and the bank first floor space is all concrete. So 1 hour fire resistant construction on the floor ceiling. The walls are poured concrete foundations, and basically there are no windows, so it's just full height concrete walls. Ceilings are tall. It's a fully sprinklered building per NFPA. Already a dedicated heating and ventilating system, single use unit up on the roof with a dedicated shaft. So it really is really nicely set up for this kind of thing. And then the exiting, the two exits, there's an exit on either end which complies with the use and with the number of occupants that would be allowed in the space. Both of those exits are in 1 hour fire resistant construction and immediately access required exits. One of them is kind of by where the bank drive-through is, sort of on that southwestern side of the building, and then the other one, of course, is right at the main entrance. So, so the building is pretty well set up for exactly what you'd want to do down in the lower level. So,
Okay, great. While we have you up there, any
sure.
other questions? It sounds like the original construction had some good foresight.
They did indeed. Yeah, they did indeed.
Well, good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, commissioners, additional questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Henderson.
Okay, I will make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the city council to approve the plan unit development amendment to allow religious institution use at 550 Burnsville Parkway West, subject to the following 3 conditions listed in the memo.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson. Commissioner Anderson.
I'd like to second that.
All right, thank you. Moved by Commissioner Henderson, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Any additional discussion? No. All right, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Awad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Aye. And the motion carries. And again, this will go in front of the city council on May 4th. So thank you for being here. All right, we will move on to item number 5, which is also a public hearing. It's an application of Raising Cane's Restaurants LLC for a planned unit development amendment to demolish the former Pier One Imports store and construct a new fast food restaurant at 1501 County Road 42 West. And Ms. Garros will be presenting for us tonight. Thank you, Ms. Garros.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have the applicant's representative here this evening, and also Melanie Bagley, who would like to introduce the project once we get through the staff summary of this. But Melanie is here on Zoom, and then we have Ben Johnson in the back, who is here representing the applicant. So for this application, this is at the Aurora Village Shopping Center, similar to, we just had an application at the last meeting for a different tenant space. But what this is for is, again, a planned unit development. It involves the need to establish the use of a fast food restaurant as a use allowed in the PUD zone. And there are also a couple of minor deviations that are requested. And the subject site currently has the Pier One Imports store that's been closed for quite a while. It just recently was used for COVID testing, and that has been closed out since the end of March. The site is at 1501 County Road 42 West. And the site zoning is general business planned unit development. The lease lot, in this case, they're not subdividing, so they have a lease lot and that's about 1.3 acres. And then the entire Aurora Village Center is just a little over 16 acres. And the aerial photo just gives location. This site is directly west of the Olive Garden restaurant. And on the right, that just shows the details of the lease area as it exists today. So what they are proposing is to make changes to the parking lot and to demo the building. There are several PUD benefits and a couple of deviations. The overall green space for the site is going to be at 61% versus the 25%, so it's quite a bit higher. They will be installing some additional landscaping along the north side of the parking lot, which currently there are a couple of trees there, but it's just grass, so that is a significant improvement and also brings that component of the site into compliance with the current ordinance. On the third one down, I have that one's okay. The next one has a typo. They are providing more overstory trees than the ordinance requires. And then for the next one, for the shrubs, there's 142, which is required. They're providing 172, so 30 more. Just wanted to make that known. They're going to be installing basically a stormwater pond, rainwater garden, and then they are also exceeding the ordinance in terms of stacking. For vehicle stacking, the ordinance requires six vehicles. They are proposing to have room for 28 vehicles, just in their standard stacking, and are looking at development of 2 drive-through lanes. The deviations, one of them is a minor deviation from the building perimeter landscaping to allow 46 versus 50%. Staff is supportive of this because the overall green space is so much higher than the minimum required. And also they're looking at some flexibility for overall site signage to have more signage in total, and then also a type of sign that isn't really addressed by the city's ordinance, so we'll get into that later. And that's the last flexibility, is the one wall sign that really is not addressed in the current ordinance. So this is the demolition plan. Basically the amount of impervious surface is going to remain pretty much the same. The building size is quite a bit smaller proposed than what's out there now. The existing building's over 10,000 square feet, and they're looking at, I believe, about 36 or 3,800 square feet for their new building. But with the drive lanes, that is where that other surface area is identified too. They will be also doing some work on part of the parking lot, and that's outlined kind of in that darker shaded color. So this is basically what the site plan is. The main access to the site is to the west There's one driveway access in and out for this particular site. However, just to the east, next door for the Olive Garden restaurant, you can see that there is an access at that point. Both of the sites do have joint parking and access, so you can drive through one and get to the other and out to the rest of the shopping center. And this basically just shows you the stacking that's available, 28 spaces, the building that's being proposed, and then to the west of the building or on the left-hand side will be their outdoor patio. So in terms of the development summary, we talked about most things. The building's going to be shorter than the existing building, about 22 feet as opposed to 30 feet. Impervious surface coverage stays basically the same. And then the overall green space, actually that should be 61. Sorry about that, typo there too. Parking lot, green space meets the ordinance, and then just a slight deviation for the building perimeter. And they are meeting the parking standard for the site. Oh, something else I just wanted to note is on the bottom, there is a canopy that's constructed where people can, when they're driving under, as they're ordering, they'll be under a separate detached canopy. The floor plan is fairly standard. Most of the customers that they have for Raising Canes are drive-through, and they really cater to that. The drive-through and circulation was probably the most studied or analyzed part of the application, and our city engineer had noted, and they did provide information on other sites. Apple Valley is one that a lot of people know of that has, some issues with cars backing up sometimes near to 42 or even onto 42. This site is set up significantly different than that, and they have shown through the information that they've provided, they did provide us information for the Egan site. I believe we have information for Maple Grove, West St. Paul, and a couple of others. So they have provided that documentation, which has been reviewed by the city engineer, and our consultant engineer, Sarah Lloyd, is here this evening if there are questions on that. But basically, you've got the northern part is where the seating is, interior, and then the kitchens, and then the southern part is where you've got storage and the walk-in freezers. One of the elements that is requested to be changed relates to that 1990 PUD. So over 30 years ago, when this project was approved, they did have design standards, and the applicant is looking to do a flat roof. And in the 1990 PUD, there was a provision that they wouldn't allow flat roof. So what they called it a Bermuda-style roof, and basically what that was is it appears that you've got an arch or an angled roof, but really it hides the mechanical equipment on the top of the building. So they are requesting a deviation to do a flat roof, and that is comparable to what LA Fitness has. So it's not like it's unheard of in the development, and actually I think it's a much more current type of construction and will look really nice. In terms of the exterior materials, they have multiple materials that are proposed. EFIS generally, but they do have rock face block, usually on the bottom row, and then also on the, I'll call them columns or towers. And they did incorporate to kind of help this new style and architecture fit in with the overall PUD. They incorporated the gable roof elements on the top of the two towers, if you will, and this is replicating the same thing that's on the tower in front of the former Burger Jones, which now will be Banfield Pet Hospital, and then also the same color metal material that's used on the other roofs within the development. They're also proposing a series of canopies. The 1990 PUD called for fabric awnings, and they're proposing an upgrade to that to do these metal canopies. And from a staff perspective, we think that it's a very nice look, and we do not have any issues with what's proposed. And this is this would be the west elevation, so this is facing, this is the other side, not facing Olive Garden, but on the other side, the west elevation, and the south elevation. And just what I wanted to call your attention to is on that south elevation where you see that kind of blue-green color in the middle of the building, if you will. They're doing another awning type of feature there that, again, helps. You can see it on this west elevation on the right-hand side. So they're doing another awning there over the building, and it's really just a feature to, again, kind of help it fit within the rest of the development. So we think that from a staff perspective, they've done a very nice job with the materials and the building appearance. In terms of the stacking and the overall site plan, they are reducing the number of parking spots on this lease area site from 60 to, I believe it's 42 or 46. 46. And it does meet the parking that they need for their restaurant use, but again, they primarily cater to the takeout or drive-through. So what they have shown on their plan is if you were just to take a look at the, basically to go straight across and not include the 6 northernmost cars that are shown, that's where you have the 28 stalls. Again, the ordinance only calls for 6, or in this case with 2, it'd be 12. So they're far exceeding that. And then in addition to that, if there is a need for additional stacking space, they have provided a plan where they will work with their employees to go out and they'll actually put cones up and direct traffic as well. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. The other element of the site plan is there is a proposed trash enclosure that will be located near that westerly entrance, just on the south-hand side. And then in terms of the parking lot design, the reason that I included this within your packet is just to show that they are going to be adding quite a bit of signage so to help people get around the site, both in pavement markings and also signs, indicating, not to drive through or to drive through here, that type of thing. So they are very complete, I think, in what they are proposing. As far as the landscape plan, it's superior to what exists out there now. It's kind of a tired site being so old, 31 years. So the landscaping that they're proposing, I think will be a great addition for the shopping center, and in addition to a very nice element for the site. The stormwater pond that they're putting in is just to the west of the building. You can see it there. It's near the driveway access to the site. And then there's landscaping and screening that's proposed around the trash enclosure, and then along the north and west parts of the parking lot. They're also adding more trees and shrubs within the one parking island that's out there, and everything will be irrigated. In addition to that, they're also replacing the landscaping around the freestanding sign, which again is just kind of old, old junipers pretty much. So what they've proposed in terms of the numbers of materials, the types and variety, this will be a very nice landscape plan and screening plan. It will provide year-round interest, and we think that they have done a nice job with that. What this elevation is, this shows the landscaping, just the perimeter landscaping. And again, they're a little bit short, but we believe that the building is fairly unique. You've got a very small commercial building. It's narrow when it's facing County Road 42, so that limits the amount of signage that they get. You typically wouldn't find this narrow of a commercial building, and so if you went with the zoning ordinance of 16%, you'd get quite a bit more signage. But because their building is not that wide, they're limited in their signage. So from a staff perspective, we are okay with what is requested for the amount of signage. One of the items, it's called the Red Dog, and it's on the top right-hand side And that wall sign, if you will, does not meet our ordinance standard. When we have wall signs, really the ordinance is set up currently to just talk about having individual letters and those types of things, and this isn't one of those. So, point to note, probably some changes to the sign ordinance will be suggested. But that's the one sign that would be different than the ordinance. Otherwise, on the southernmost elevation, you see the canes, that large canes, that will actually be a mural. So that does not need to meet the sign ordinance standards. The other 4 canes signs, and then at the top of the canopy, they'll be putting in One Love. So those are the signs that are proposed. The grading plan is fairly simple, not much grading required, primarily just for the stormwater pond on the west side. And then for stormwater management, again, they're dealing with the stormwater pond. If you have questions, I'm sure that Ms. Lloyd can address those. Just standard erosion sediment control plan. We don't anticipate that there are going to be issues at all, especially out on County Road 42 for this particular project. And then we included this with the application. It does show their site signage, so all the individual signs are identified, and then in addition to that, their lighting. They're putting in several different types of light fixtures on the site. It does conform to the ordinance, and we think will provide a nice view. There is one existing pylon sign on their property, so they'll just be changing that from the Pier One Imports to Canes, and then it's painting it. Right now it's kind of rusted and tired looking, so this will be upgraded. And as I said, the junipers will go away, and there'll be some nice new landscaping at the base. And we talked about here, these are the various signs again. What I want to draw your attention to is at the top where you see these yellow bands. That is where they are looking at the opportunity to do architectural lighting. And that does get, the architectural lighting gets applied to signage. It's like a third of the length of that applies to signage. So there may be some lighting, and as I said, all the lighting conforms to the ordinance. And this again just shows the other 2 elevations. And for the lighting, primarily the most of most interest, they are going to be adding a couple of new light poles. They'll look just like the other light poles out there, but they are in the center, the top center. That is their sconce type lighting, and I believe there are 22 or 26 of these, that will be surrounding the building. So it will provide a very nice ambiance. On the right, that is really what the kind of can lighting, if you will, that will be installed under the canopies on the patio. And then just standard wall pack lighting by the exits for the back of the building. And the one in the lower center is kind of a similar type of light fixture that you'd see for a painting type of a thing, except this is going to be, they'll have this on the west side over the Red Dog, and then also on the east side over the mural. And with that, we do have a number of recommendations, although most of these are fairly standard. So our recommendations are, number 1, that previously approved PUDs still remain in full force and effect. Another thing I wanted to note for Planning Commission is when we did the Banfield Pet Hospital PUD amendment, we added a clause in there that any uses in the underlying B3 district that are permitted or accessory, you could do those in the future without needing a PUD amendment. Those documents aren't filed yet, so that's why this is part of this amendment, but that should be taken care of in the future to allow more folks and more different types of businesses without needing to come in for a PUD amendment. The pedestrian way, sorry, I should have shown that. There is a pedestrian way, and it's shown from the parking lot to the front, to the north side of the building. And that is shown to be painted. That does need to be either a different material, raised surface. Painting of that is not, does not meet the ordinance. So we have added a condition that be done. And then, with the exception of the red dog sign, the other wall signs meet the construction requirements of the ordinance, that they need to obtain sign permits. And also, we would want an updated Aurora Village comprehensive sign plan, including what's approved as far as this. All the light fixtures will need to be downcast and shielded, and we believe that that will definitely be the case. And then we get to the city engineer comments. And one of those is they would like to have a lid management agreement, low impact development for the stormwater pond. That's a standard type of thing. It's basically their responsibility for maintaining that pond over time. And then also, they have a grease interceptor, which is on the south side of the building. And actually, for Burnsville, we have had quite a few issues over the years with these lines where they're not maintained. Clogs up the city sewer system and can be really a mess. So there has been an addition that a grease interceptor maintenance agreement will be required this time as well. Then number 11, Canes must provide a written drive-through operations plan indicating the circumstances when their cones will be set up and the position, I guess the title of the position of the folks that are going to have to go out there. So that's clear for the record on what will happen if they need to provide additional stacking distance back into the parking lot. And the last one would be that this is a request by the city engineer or something a little bit different here because we know that there are sometimes issues with stacking. What they wanted to see is to allow the business to operate but have an opportunity from a staff perspective to be able to review this in 6 months. And then if there are any changes required to, if there are any issues with backing out, especially I think out onto County Road 42 type of a thing, that we can take a look at the queuing and modifications to this to be able to address that. And the city engineer is requesting they deposit a $5,000 escrow in order to be able to have something in place for that when that's done. And with that, those are all of my comments. I can stand for questions. This is a public hearing, and we do have Melanie online. If Melanie, if you'd like to do your introduction.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Bagley. I am at 2348 Arizo Lane in Allen, Texas, 75013. Thank you, first of all, for letting me join via Zoom. And I am the property development manager for Raising Cane. So I've been working, Ben Johnson with Kinley Horn is on my team. And as you can tell from Deb's very thorough presentation, wow, we've been working a lot on this. And with traffic, as Deb noted, being the main concern, citing Apple Valley, it's a very blatant example of what happens when a restaurant is very popular and doing very well. I think that the exhibits that we have provided really show a clear picture of what our intentions are here with this site. I can tell you that since I started with Canes probably a little over 2 years ago, I have seen the focus shift exponentially to mitigating issues with regard to the drive-through. It is a conversation we are having daily. We were having that conversation prior to COVID and during COVID, and now that we expect things to start opening back up, as will we, opening our dining rooms, we expect it to maybe change again. But we are implementing measures almost on a weekly basis to make sure that our restaurants are performing well and that we don't have issues like, stacking back onto 42. We've gone so far as to add additional equipment in the restaurant itself, more fryers, everything that we can do to improve that response time. In fact, on a meeting that I had just the other day, it was announced that Canes had a new low average queue time of 2 minutes and 28 seconds. And that's from the time you order to the time you're leaving the drive-through with your food. And I can say, the fact that our food is cooked fresh to order, as some of you may, I would hope, know, really helps keep things moving. We've done a lot of looking at the Apple Valley store. We've got new stores opening up in the area. We're obviously working on this project. And with Ben, I'm also working on another site in a nearby community. So we're hoping to kind of pull some of the traffic that's at that Apple Valley store, and with these new stores create just a more even availability to our customers. So that's kind of the general topic I wanted to touch on. As Deb mentioned, we have, updated the design to sort of fit in with the 30-year-old shopping center, but not go too far back in time. Really feel that with our landscaping improvements to the site and everything, this will really freshen up this spot right here on 42 Freewall. So I'm here for any questions. Ben's here for technical questions that are above my pay grade, and thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bagley. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. Would you like to address the commission, or do you want to wait until we have questions for you?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for the conditions, but I can wait to do that.
Well, if you'd like to step up to the microphone, and please just state your name and address for the record, and then any of the questions you have, we'll kind of cycle back and try to answer them. We might not answer them as you're asking them, though.
Yeah, Ben Johnson with Kimley Horn, 767 Eustis Street, Suite 100 in St. Paul, Minnesota. As Melanie mentioned, we've been working together on several projects. Canes is probably they're breaking ground on, I think, about 5 projects in the next couple weeks. So we got a lot of new development going on in the Twin Cities, and it's great working with them. They're changing their design all the time, which is always keeping us on our toes as designers, but they're aware of the times, and implementing these changes is something exciting. But I think specifically related to the traffic, I just add to the fact that we've definitely been taking into account the concerns that staff has had. And, every new community that we're coming into, this is a bigger issue. I think COVID has definitely made that very prevalent with the fact that dining isn't open at all these places and cars are stacking twice as much or whatever it is as they usually do. So we have taken counts at Egan, Apple Valley, Shoreview, and West St. Paul, which was in the study that we prepared for the city engineer. And I think we demonstrated that basically what you're seeing is a significant increase in drive-through traffic, but that this site could handle any of those other sites that are currently sort of overloaded, if you want to say that, in terms of being able to stack all those vehicles on site. So I think that's a benefit to this project. They're definitely looking at that with all their new projects. The dual drive-through lane is something that's not on any of the current Minnesota sites. So that's another benefit, but I think I just had a couple questions related to the two, I think, sort of stacking traffic related items, Deb, that we emailed on earlier. So I was wondering timing wise for 11 and 12, if we were just supposed to address those prior to building permit, or if that was prior to CO or something like that. I don't know if that could be included in the report
Ms. Garrow?
in terms of providing the escrow and the,
I think that those could be provided, with the building permit, application part of it.
Gotcha.
Yep,
okay, that makes
our
sense.
city engineer would work with you on that.
And then item 12, we're in general agreement with that condition as well, and appreciate the foresight of, bringing it to our attention now rather than surprising people down the road, but appreciate that, and just wanted to reconfirm that I think it's worded as potential site reconfiguration, whether it's bollards or curbing or striping. Just wanted to kind of make sure that we understand that the scope of that is basically limited to some sort of administrative site plan review, and it's not related to coming back and doing this PUD amendment again kind of deal.
And that is what's intended, is it for it to be a staff review and not have to come back for planning commission or council review.
Thank you.
We can clarify that or add some clarification to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think when we move this, we can add something to clarify that.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I had, so here for questions too.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Mr. Johnson or Ms. Bagley? Or for Ms. Garrels? Commissioner Awad.
I have a question. How soon can I eat at Cane's in Burnsville?
Before the year's out, if we're lucky. Yeah.
Thank you. It seems like a really nice project, and I appreciate the gestures towards matching the architecture of the strip mall and the kind of exceeding the landscape requirements. Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, before I really pry you guys for questions or discussion, I will open the public hearing, just to be sure that anyone else who wants to speak to this item has that opportunity. And I'll open the public hearing at 7:25 p.m. And I will wait just a moment to see if we have anybody on Zoom or on the telephone who wishes to speak to this item. All right, it doesn't look like we do, and nobody in chambers, so I will close the public hearing at 7:26 p.m. and kick it back to the commissioners for additional questions and comments. Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I'm excited that you guys will be coming to the area. Using a site that's not being used right now is definitely good for the city. I like in your proposal, the fact that you seem to be exceeding a lot of the requirements, especially things like the green space, rainwater garden. I like those ideas a lot. But most importantly, I do appreciate the fact that you seem to have been really studying and comparing what you guys are planning on doing for the drive-through. I know what you're talking about for the Apple Valley store. I drive by there all the time, and it always seems to have a very long line extending very far out of the parking lot. So I appreciate very much. You guys appear to be a very popular place with a lot of people, and that would not be an issue in Burnsville. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. I just wanted to make sure that we address one of the correspondences that we received, and that was from Planning Manager Kurt Chatfield. He's the Planning Manager of Dakota County. And he, on behalf of Dakota County, expressed some concerns about the vehicle queuing. And I guess my question for Kevin, I see you were on the email here, or maybe Ms. Garrels. Do you believe that his concerns have been mitigated with all of the things we've discussed and had presented to us tonight?
I know that Sarah Lloyd did have the opportunity to meet with Mr. Chatfield, so if you want to give him an update.
Thank you, Deb. I did speak with Kurt Chatfield at Dakota County, and the additional comment and that we put in the Planning Commission report is really in line with what he was wanting to see too, in line with the city's concerns with the queuing and the stacking. Just wanting to confirm that what is shown in the traffic report and what we actually see on the site is in fact adequate. So he is happy with where we're at.
Wonderful. Well, we want to keep Mr. Chatfield happy. All right. So, other questions, comments? All right, I will just echo the other commissioners that it's nice to see this space being utilized kind of in a more modern fashion. I'm glad that we saw a project 2 weeks ago in this particular development, and that we're seeing another one now. I saw some sign work on one of the other tenant spaces being done a few days ago. So it's just nice to see some I guess, redevelopment in this area. I think this project looks very nice. I think it's appealing and will meet the demands of a lot of hungry Burnsvillites, Burnsvillians, folks who live in Burnsville. So, yeah, I think this is a good thing. So with that, unless there's other comments, I would stand for a motion for approval. Commissioner Awad.
I move that we recommend to the city council approval of the PUD amendment, subject to the following conditions. And were we gonna add something, language about the, kind of the result of the study not requiring, a revisit at the planning commission level, that would be handled within the staff? Does that need to be added here, or is that just as part of the public record, is that enough to kind
I
of
think as part
satisfy?
of the public record, we've identified, and we'll make that clear for the city council as well, that
Okay.
is looking at its staff. But it does state in here that these are to be reviewed by the city engineer, so.
Okay, so, so recommend approval of the, PUD amendment, subject to the 12 conditions that are listed in our memo.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner Awad. And Commissioner Anderson?
I will second that.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Awad, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion? All right, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Awad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Aye, and the motion carries. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Bagley, thank you for joining us. This will go to the city council at their next meeting, which is on May 4th. And hopefully, if you want to attend, Ms. Bagley, I think they still will have a capacity to do Zoom if you'd like
Okay.
to call in for that as well.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Now, it likely will go on the consent agenda for them, but if not, then it might be nice for you to be available if they do have any questions as well.
Well, that's no problem at all. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Real good, thank you. All right, so let me just get my agenda back up here. That brings us to updates. Are there any updates from the commissioners? Any updates from staff?
So I'll let Deb finish me off here, but the first round of updates, so our next, meeting will be May 10th. It will still be a hybrid meeting here in the council chambers and on Zoom. Right now, it looks like we're going to have 2, but possibly 3 public hearings on the agenda. And Deb, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think pretty straightforward.
Okay,
so.
and as stated before, the items that were on the agenda tonight will be on the May 4th city council meeting at 5:30.
Are there any updates on the ordinance review and a kickoff as far as the planning commission's concerned with what we'll be looking at? Will we kind of have an idea of what the first meeting is for us to do that?
So the first meeting to talk about that is going to be one of the meetings in June. So we're still nailing that down at a staff level to see which of those meetings it is. Likely it'll be the first meeting in June. Staff is beginning our work with a consultant to go through the first section this week. So we'll be starting to prep for that to really start presenting what we've done in June.
Then we're looking to coordinate also with Councilmember Schultz to have her come in at one of the next 2 meetings and kind of go over kind of council direction and what their thinking is on the code update.
Wonderful. All right. Well, it looks like that's all for updates. As a reminder, members of the public can submit additional public comment related to the items on this evening's Planning Commission agenda until 4:30 p.m. on Friday, April 30th, 2021. And these comments will be included with the City Council background for consideration at their May 4th meeting. At this time, I'd like to request a call for adjournment of the April 26, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll move.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson. Commissioner Wad,
I second.
moved by Commissioner Henderson, seconded by Commissioner Wad. And if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Awad,
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Timmerman.
Aye. And we are adjourned at 7:34. Thank you all.
Thank you.